Good morning, everyone. This week's Torah portion is the story of the spies. And at the end of the Parsha, we have the mitzvah of tzitzit. Today, there was another tragic news report that Anthony Bourdain from parts unknown committed suicide. The second suicide in 1 week of highly successful and famous individuals. And I think there's an important lesson that we all have to take to heart. The question is asked, what's the connection between tzitzit and the story of the spies? So when you look at the commandment of tzitzit, which is the third paragraph of the Shema, it says, you should see the tzitzit, or item osam, uzachartam et kol mitzvot Hashem, and remember all of the commandments of God. The tzitzits are meant to remind us, especially the blue thread, of the heaven and of God and all of the commandments, because tzitzit equals 600 plus the 8 strings and the 5 knots. So the point of the tzitzit is like the tying of a string around your finger to remind you of something. When you see the tzitzit, you remember the commandments of God. But then we say in the Shema, which is quoted from this week's Parsha, you should not go astray after your eyes and your heart. And then it says, Laman tiskaru, in order that you should remember and do all the mitzvahs of Hashem. And the question is, it already said earlier, you'll see the tzitzit and remember the commandments of God. But then it repeats it a second time. It says, Laman tiskaru, that you should remember. What's the difference between the first remembrance in the Shema paragraph and the second remembrance? And the answer is quite obvious. Many times we see something and we're reminded of something. What we see reminds us of something, but then we forget about it. The Shema is saying you should see the tzitzit and remember the commandments, but not only when you're looking at the tzitzit, but for the rest of the day. Whatever you do, you should remember what you saw earlier, and as a result of that, you should act appropriately and remember the commandments of God. Don't just remember in the moment, carry that memory with you forward. And that's what the connection to the story of the spies. The spies witnessed the splitting of the sea, the 10 plagues of Revelation at Mount Sinai. When they saw these miracles, they said, this is our God, and we will glorify Him. But once the miracles passed, they forgot. And therefore, when it came to conquer the land of Israel, they had fear rather than faith in Hashem. And therefore, the message of the Shema and the tzitzit is, don't make that mistake in your life. When you see something, remember it not only in the moment, but carry that memory with you and make sure that memory inspires you in the future, even when you're not physically looking at it. And I think what this week showed us is that it's ironic that the name of Anthony Bourdain's show is Parts Unknown, because I think that's the message. The message is there are parts that are unknown within every person. You think you know who the person is, you have no idea who that person is. Everyone thought this person is a famous, happy celebrity. Nobody knew the dark secrets. And the same thing happened with Kate Spade. And the point is, when you look at a human being, realize there are parts unknown. You don't know who this person is. And therefore treat every person with kindness and compassion, because you don't know what this person internally is going through, what their struggles are. And this lesson that we're seeing this week should be with us every day of our lives. Not just today when it's in the news, but to always remember when you talk to a person, go easy, be gentle. You don't know who this person is entirely. You never know what a person is carrying within their heart, within their soul. So always give people the benefit of the doubt. Be overly kind and compassionate and sensitive and caring to every human being, because you never know who you're dealing with entirely. And I'm reminded of the story. There was this father his son was Down syndrome child. And his kid went to OHEL. OHEL is a school for special needs kids. And there was a dinner for OHEL, and he was the guest of honor. And he got up to speak, this father, as the guest of honor, parent of the year. And he said, when my wife and I had this child, our child Shai, we were overjoyed to have a child, but we struggled. Why did God give us a child with special needs, Down syndrome? How will this child function in life? How will they become independent and productive and successful? Why couldn't God give us a healthy child? He said, one day I was walking home with my son, and we walked by a park, and we saw a bunch of kids his age, 11-year-olds, playing baseball, and they're having a great game. And my son says, Daddy, I want to play baseball. I knew that he can't play baseball, so I said, no, Shy, we got to get home. My mommy's made dinner, we got to get home. But he started crying, really, I want to play baseball. So I said, we'll go into the bleachers, we'll watch them play. So we sat down in the bleachers, but then he kept on saying, Daddy, I really want to play. And I knew my son can play. But he kept on asking over and over, and he really wanted to. So I said, okay, let me talk to them. And I figured they would surely say no. I walked onto the field, and I said, my son never gets to play baseball on a team. Would you maybe include him in your game, give him something to do? They looked up, and they saw Shai in the bleachers. They immediately saw he was Down syndrome. And these yeshiva kids said, sure, we'd love to have him on the team. And he calls, Shai, come. And Shai beams, he comes running onto the court. They say, okay, here's a mid, go out into the field. And he's so happy, he's never been on a baseball team. Now it's time for that team to get up to bat, and finally it was Shai's turn. And Shai held the bat clumsily, he could barely hold the bat, and the pitcher moves in and gently pitches it, and Shai tries to swing, and it's strike one. And so the pitcher moves up close and gently tosses it to him, and he swings, strike two. And finally the pitcher's like a few feet away, and he deliberately made sure the ball hit the bat, and it punted. And all the teammates started screaming, run Shai, go to first, go to first. And he said, I watched my son beaming, trying with all his might to get to first base. He said the pitcher picked up the ball and he threw it to the first baseman, but he deliberately threw it way over his head. And he had to run after the ball, and the whole team was running, Shai, go to second, go to second. I said, my son was running as fast as he can to second, and the first baseman threw it way over the head of the second baseman. Shai, go to third. And finally the second baseman fetches the ball and throws it way over the head of the third baseman. Now the whole team is screaming, go Shai, go home, Shai. And finally Shai runs to home plate, and he says all the teammates ran over and they picked him up on their shoulders. And they started screaming, home run, Shai, home run, Shai. He says, I looked at my son and I had never seen him happier in his whole life. And then I understood perhaps why God gave me such a child, to bring out the best